we're going to talk a partner in a last panel. Do you want to introduce our panel?
Absolutely, Mom. And I know this is near and dear to your heart because my father died in 2020 and my mother lost her life partner and has since gone on to find
60 years. Yep.
60 years and wrote the book.
To Love. Show it again, The Secrets of Senior Dating. We wrote it for all those out there who've had a loss of a partner and are hoping to find love again. You can get it on Amazon.
So I'm looking forward to hearing about this panel right now because everyone on this panel has lost a partner that has been near and dear to their heart. And today we are going to have Jill Johnson-Young moderate this panel. And Jill will be joined by Abel Keogh, Dr. Red Hoffman, Dawn Nargi, there she is, and Tysha Scott. Welcome, everybody. I will introduce you and then I will turn it over to Jill Johnson-Young and she will moderate this. So where's Jill? Oh, there she is. Hi, Jill.
Hey,
Jill
I'm here.
Jill Johnson-Young is a licensed clinical social worker. She co-owns Central Counseling Services and is the author of several grief books, including The Rebellious Widow, A Practical Guide to Love and Life After Loss. Joining her is Abel Keogh, who is a relationship coach and the author of several books, including Dating a Widower. And Abel offers guidance through his YouTube channel. Then we have Dr. Red Hoffman, who is an acute care surgeon and one of the few U.S. surgeons board certified in hospice and palliative care. She has personally experienced multiple traumatic losses, including the murder of her father and the suicide of her boyfriend. Welcome. Welcome, Red, and welcome, Abel. Then we have Dawn Nargi, where there Dawn is. Dawn is a grief counselor and executive director and co-founder of the W Connection in New York City. She provides support to women who have lost a partner, creating a community for those navigating profound loss. And then we've got Tysha Scott. Tysha is the founder of A Widow's Voice, an organization offering support to widows and widowers. She provides resources and community to those grieving the loss of a spouse. She does her work in honor of her husband, Phil, and that was my father's name also. Okay, so welcome. I'm going to turn this amazing panel over to Jill. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks very much for having us again, Gloria and Heidi. It's always fun to do this every year. This is a great panel for those of you who are joining us. We've spent some time talking by text, by chat, by Facebook, by email, and in person before this because we wanted to make sure we covered all the things that all of you might want to hear about, and we got a short time to do it. We've all been introduced. At the end, we're going to have everyone put their information in the chat. So if you want to reach out to Abel or Red or Dawn or Tysha, you can find them, or to me even. But some of the topics that I would like one of you guys to lead off with that we came up with as a group in a variety of ways is things not to say to a grieving partner, finding love and intimacy after loss because it's fun, but it's hard too, how to support a grieving partner. One thought you'd want to share with someone who's new to our group, because when you join this club, it's not one you choose, but it's sure one that you have to learn to navigate. And usually you don't have experience. I did. I've been widowed twice, but the first time's a learning curve. Right. The importance of boundaries. That's a Jill moment. You got to have the boundaries when you're doing loss, because otherwise people will try to help you do it and they're not you and it's not their loss. Additional losses that come with partner loss, which is a hallmark feature of a partner loss. Financial issues, social isolation, what grief does to us physically as partners, and the importance of getting to the doctor. Loss of productivity and concentration. Kid losses, which includes little people and big people, because big kids tend to think they know what's best for their parents when they're not their parents. And little people need a lot of support when there's a loss, if they're still little when it happens. My kids were all teens when I lost both my partners. And the risks that come with all of this, and what the difference is between being widowed or becoming a widow or widower when you are young versus middle versus end, and where do you land on the spectrum? Are you going to be Betty, who went and volunteered with all the dogs, cats, and zoos and never remarried? Or are you going to be Jill, who, okay, I'm widowed. I've been doing this caretaking thing for a long time and I'm ready to remarry like now. So let's talk about all of that. Who would like to lead off?
I'm happy to start. I
Okay.
think, thanks. I think one thing that I would love to, or actually two things I'll mention that I learned in the last couple of years. One, I'd ask that anyone who is supporting someone who is a grieving partner try to not make any assumptions about what was going on in that relationship before the partner died. So in my example, I found out about a lot of awful things after my partner died, and my partner died very angry at me. And so when people would say, "Oh, this will be the love of your life," well, I hope not, even though I'll always have love for him. And then two, he'd want you to be happy. I'm like, I can guarantee, I know this person, he probably would not want me to be super happy right at this moment. And that's okay. You know what I mean? So I think that was a big thing, is not making assumptions. And then the other thing is that it's okay. As you mentioned, we all lose partners at different times in our lives. I mean, I was in my 40s and I was like, I wasn't ready to have a relationship right away, but I think it's important. Like, I wanted to have sex. Like, I wanted to be
Right.
intimate. My partner was very sick before he died, and I missed all of that stuff. And again, to those who are supporting us as grieving partners, just to try to withhold the judgment that may come up, and be grateful that perhaps you haven't walked in our shoes, and just kind of walk alongside us, as like what Dr. Brewer was saying, like as we try to find that joy. Because the biggest thing for me was feeling utterly, I used to tell my mom, utterly devoid of joy in a way that was so painful, and finding that joy again is great for everyone, myself and everyone around me.
I love that you brought that in with humor, and I love that everyone on this panel laughed through that,
Yeah.
because we've all been there. And people
Right.
who watch us and haven't been here, when they
Right.
see us doing these things, they're sort of like, ooh. And then when you say you're a widow, they go, oh, they get that look on their face that we all hate. So I love that you brought in the joy and the humor that comes from finding where we are and finding where we need to go and not assuming. I went to my
Thank you.
brother-in-law's funeral and I was like, I think I'm at the wrong one. They're describing someone I did not know.
Right.
Right? Tysha, you are coming right in. Tell me where you are.
Yeah, I'm in connecting to all of this, finding that balance of joy and pain. That grief and all of its pain gives us an opportunity to also become anew. I found that at one point I said, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being, the pain was so intense that I needed to find something of joy and support, finding the widow's support, finding a voice, finding my voice in this journey. And that's when I began to say, I am not the same person I was June 20, 2020. So in that change and in that ethos, then who do I want to be? First, I need help. I need to make sure I'm physically okay. I had to get my daughter through college. I had to find a little bit of joy and not listen to people say, don't worry, you're 53 when he died, you'll find somebody. You'll get married again. Or you can't hang out with this crew anymore because we're the couples crew. So it was that part of me dying as well. The loss of friendships. So I decided, how can I allow something creative in my life that I've always loved to help me? And I thought, if I have other widow voices saying, what creative part of your life can you do? Can you go take a sculpture class? Can you go paint? Can you do something that will give you joy, even for an hour, and build on that as time goes on? So it's the loneliness, it's the grief where you just say, I have got to do something at the moment. It doesn't say it's going to change the loneliness and the grief, but it's a moment where you can just pivot
and ground yourself
just a
and
little
let it
bit.
in.
Yes,
Right.
a little bit. Find
Absolutely.
something to pivot a little bit while you're getting support and therapy and grief groups and the W Connection and Soaring Spirits, right? And all of
those things.
And reading Open to Love that I've read twice and I've gifted to 5 people.
And reading the books about widow fire, which are really important and not talked about. Boy, go to a therapist conference and talk about widows and widowers wanting to have sexual relationships, and people lose their minds.
I know.
Right? It's really kind of funny to watch.
We're supposed
So,
to be Havisham from Great Expectations.
exactly. Thank you for bringing that in. I think that when you become a widow or widower, you get the ace of all grief cards, and you get to decide now, my life has been changed without my permission. What am I going to do with that? What did I want to do when I grew up, and what did I like doing when I was little, and all those things. Abel, you're the man in the groom. Tell us how this fits for you.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge I see is, yes, you should go out and figure out what you want in chapter 2, but a lot of people, they don't know what that is. When I talk to widowers, especially, a lot of their identity is tied up in their spouse and in their job and things like that, and that gets kicked out from under them. And one of the first questions I always ask them is like, where do you see your life headed, or what do you think the next chapter of your life looks like? And I usually get a deer in the headlights look. It's like, I don't know. And I think it's okay not to know, but I think a lot of people, they don't spend the time to really kind of take a step back and maybe, and really decide what it is that they want to do, right? It doesn't have to involve dating or relationships, but it's like, it's like figure out what it is that you really want to take this next chapter, because I mean, it's awful and it sucks to lose a spouse, but at the same time, there's an opportunity there to kind of reset your life and figure out what is it that you want to do. And your second chapter can be just as wonderful as your first chapter, but it's also very different. I've remarried, and I have a wonderful chapter 2. It's very different than chapter 1, and that's okay, but it's still just as wonderful. But I think to get there, it took me consciously kind of thinking and figuring out, at least having the general idea of where it was I wanted to go.
Absolutely. And you're right. The chapter 2 can be anything. And Betty didn't remarry ever. Her chapter 2 was dog rescuing and zoo helping and all those things. We've got lots of places that we can apply our grief and take our loved one with us. And it doesn't have to be remarriage, but that also shouldn't be out of the question. Depends on when you're ready. Everybody's prior relationship with their deceased partner is different. Everybody's process is different, and everybody's what I'm going to do from here is different. And sometimes we muck it up and we have to start over again, even in chapter 2. Dawn, you're the W connection. Tell us about where you sit with this topic.
So I think you see me shaking my head yes to you guys are so many amazing things. I think one of the things that I want to take us back to is don't assume that you know where the widower or widow is. So when I was before I was widowed, before I started the W Connection 17 years ago, I was working on Wall Street as an executive. I was just married. I just bought an apartment, and I just had a baby who was 2 months premature. My husband was diagnosed with cancer when my son was 1 month old and died when he was 3 months old. So I think, hearing all of you, sometimes people get the grief, maybe not as deeply as they should, right? We heard that from Dr. Kessler earlier. But there are also these additional risks and losses that people do not understand. New mortgage, 50% of my household income was gone. Really had this fear that I was not going to be able to stay in my apartment. I was on maternity leave. I went back to a job on Wall Street that expected, 100% of me, and that changed, right? So I think widows and widowers also face a decrease in productivity. Some widows and widows have even lost their job during this time. If you have children or aging parents, it's taking care of those people on your own. And also there's physical health impact to widowhood, right? So we recently, or my board member recently did a study on the physical effect of widow and widowhood on that surviving spouse. And of course, mental health and grief like we're sharing here. So I just want to reiterate on some of your points that you're not in those person's shoes, right? And you don't know what they're dealing with. And if they're talking about, oh my God, I have no money, don't judge them, because they're not grieving right. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Those are so important. One of the first things I do when someone walks into my office is after a major loss is send them to the doctor. And I tell them I want them to go get all the blood panels and I don't want any of the results because I'm not practicing medicine. That belongs to Dr. Red. But I want their doctor to get the results.
Right.
And typically caregivers have also put off all of their own needs. So they haven't been for the mammogram or the colonoscopy or any of those things. And they need to. They need a cardiac workup because they've been under incredible stress. And they put all that off because they're so used to doing all the things and they're busy with all the other demands. But if we're not healthy, we can't survive this at all. And we know that grief can actually kill people if you don't manage the physical symptoms. It's hugely important. I had a stroke 4 months after my second wife died, partly because of job stress, but partly because there's a picture of me online from my former employer, a hospice, the day after my second wife died, standing at my desk with my dog in my arm because the dog could no longer stand up because she was so traumatized by the second loss, with a Diet Coke in my hand. And they captioned it, "Look how dedicated Jill is. Her wife just died." And my wife was one of their nurses. So there are expectations that go with, you can be so strong, and strong is not healthy for us. Right? And strong financially, if we don't have money, we have to make decisions. And it's not your business what the life insurance amount was, or if there was any. Don't ask that question. Right? That's where the boundaries come in. Right?
The term strong to agree, a widow oftentimes made me feel like that they didn't know what else to say. And that they looked at my situation. My daughter graduated high school June 13th, 2020, which I thought the worst thing in that year would happen was that she wouldn't have a normal graduation. 7 days later, to the hour that she graduated on camera, my husband dies of sudden cardiac arrest right in front of me. 2 weeks later, we buried him. And 4 weeks later, I sent her off to college in a pandemic. And then I'm back home alone with the dog. So people
because life doesn't stop when
life
you become
does
a widow.
not stop. That tuition needed to get paid. The mortgage had to get paid. And I had to resume some normalcy for her so she could get through. And she was our child that we were going to travel. That was our second, that was our empty nest child. In an instant, your life can change. So don't ask a widow or a widower, well, you must have life insurance to pay the tuition, which I got. Well, I'm sure if you and Phil set yourselves up, I can't imagine, or you're so strong. And I know it's hard to find the right words to speak to us, but sometimes the best thing you could do for your person who has lost a partner is to say, "I'm holding space for you."
Yeah, my favorite
Let
is
me just hold space for you.
or "my heart is with you" is something that I just say a lot because I find anything else I want to say, once I start saying it back to myself, it somehow falls short.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me just take you out for coffee in another town so nobody knows you, so nobody has to talk to you. Right? That was one of my rules as a young widow, was anything I did outside of 30 miles from home, because otherwise people would know me and stop and chat. Right? Let me hold space. Let me just support you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tysha, what'd you say?
I thought I was having a heart attack 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for widowed people as well to even ask for help. I think sometimes we have a lot of things that we need, right? And I think a lot of times it's like our life is so turned upside down, and maybe people have already helped so much. It's hard. At least I see it in my clients, and and partially in myself. It was hard. I knew I needed help in certain things, and I think it can be difficult for them to even reach out and help. So anyone who has lost a spouse or a partner, I would just encourage you. It's okay to reach out and ask for help, and find a friend. If you just need to go out and talk to somebody, reach out to that friend and go out and just say, yeah, let's go travel 30 miles away and go do something. But it's like, I need to get out. And I think being proactive in that can just asking for help, or just even asking for 5 minutes of somebody's time, can be very beneficial.
And I think, Abel, some of the things we say at the W Connection too is that, people will come to you and they'll say, "Hey, so sorry for your loss. What do you need?" And it's like, we're new to this too. Like, I think people forget that I don't know. Nobody gave me the list of things I would need as a widow. So I think sometimes, if anybody who's seeing this, who's helping a widow or widower, please just do what you think they might want. Make a meal, walk their dog, take care of their child, because I had no idea what I needed. I think the other thing that I wanted to share too is what David Kessler said. Like, it was beautiful that he said, we say it at the W Connection too, there is no timeline, right? Depending on where you are in your journey, depending on, where everything is, where your parents are, if you have children, all of those things that you might be dealing with before you're dealing with your grief. And then, there's no playbook either. We each do it in our own way. And, I've seen, just to make it positive, I've seen so many women in my organization, men and women, that are amazing. Like, I am blessed to be with all of you and see that you found purpose. And, I always say I will be sad that my husband died, but I'm very, I'm no longer the executive on Wall Street anymore. I'm a person running a nonprofit who gets to see so many amazing people move through my programs and find growth and joy. It's just a beautiful privilege.
Isn't that a gift?
It's a gift.
It's totally to do this work. I want to point out in the chat, somebody named Kevin has just put in 10 things you can do for me while I'm grieving. And I love that. I have a list on my websites of things you can do to help people. I know all of you probably do too. So that when someone is in the process of losing a partner or has lost a partner, they know what to do so they don't do that. What can I do to help? Nobody wants to hear that. Right? Let's have everyone tell the audience where they can find you. We're coming up on the hour and I don't want us to go over. Abel, how do we find you?
Sure. You can find me on my website. It's abelkeogh.com, ABELKEOGH.com.
Excellent. And Red, where do we find you?
On my website, red, like the color, hoffmanmd.com. And also, if you want to watch my TED Talk, which is on making meaning after violent loss, you can just Google Red Hoffman TEDx, and that will come up.
Very nice. And Tysha, how do we find you?
You can find me on my website, theaterforlifedevelopment.com. And always email me at Tysha Scott Consulting at gmail.com.
I'm typing as fast as I can.
Okay.
All right. And Dawn, how do we find the W Connection?
So it's as easy as saying wconnection.org is our website address. We're also have a new product called Last Laughs, which encourages families to have end-of-life conversations. So it's wconnection.org or lastlaughs.com, which is coming soon.
Wonderful. I think I'm going to put that in my stuff when I speak at the International Death, Grief, and Bereavement Conference in Wisconsin in June.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. This has been a great topic. Any last thoughts for those who are in this process?
I'll just say you are not going to die. You are going to feel like you're going to die because your partner or loved one died, but we are all proof you're not going to die. But go to the doctor anyway to make sure you're not going to die.
Thank you. Or have a stroke.
Right.
Yes.
Be stronger.
And
You'll come through it a stronger and better person.
be kind to yourself. Love your.
Yes. Yeah. Great.
Don't forget to love yourself. Be kind. Just be kind to yourself.
And Dawn?
I may steal Dr. Kessler's. I love that he said, you'll always grieve the loss, like the loss is permanent, but loss of hope is only temporary. I thought that was such a beautiful thing that he said. So there's hope. It comes back.
There is hope.
I've learned that it helped me to help others, to know I'm not the only one, put one foot in front of the other, find a life.
Adding hope to the darkness, you start on the trip to recovery.
Reach deep down inside and say, I am going to live on.
We laugh, we cry, and remember.
Hope without action doesn't work. Hope with action can change the world.
We always say, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours.